I'm gonna put it down and watch. Thank you.
De nada. Ooh. So we're gonna grill you for like 75 minutes.
Okay.
Interrogate you. We're gonna make you feel very uncomfortable.
Good. I love it. Watch me say controversial things and be like, no. So in the creative communities these days, I mean, there's so many new players coming into the spaces, and I'm here for it because, for example, in the DJ world, so many new female DJs, so many different communities that weren't represented before. For example, there's so many North African women taking over the Montreal DJ scene. And I don't think that the more seasoned DJs should be scared of this. You should be welcoming. You should act as a mentor. That's what you're here for. If you already have the experience and the skill set, you shouldn't be intimidated by new players in the space. There's so much more room for collaboration in the creative scenes in general. I think that Montreal, for example, is a city that's evolving and learning how to incorporate this collaborative spirit that has been very much lacking for a long time. A lot of our talented creatives end up leaving the city because they just don't feel welcome. They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel celebrated. So I think we have to, on one side, celebrate our seasoned creatives and also make room, make space, and encourage the newbies who are just starting out and doing new things and maybe adding new ideas to the creative scenes in Montreal. I think a lot of people might be too like take, and they don't necessarily think about how they can contribute first. It's not necessarily like giving with a strategy in mind, but you have to really, just support your friends. If your friend is DJing or if your friend starts a brand or, show up and also put your money where your mouth is. I actually had a DJ gig the other day and a bunch of my friends showed up and I was like, oh, why didn't you guys ask me for guest lists? They all paid for their tickets. I didn't ask them to pay for their tickets. I didn't even know they were showing up, but they put their money where their mouth is. They support their friends. They support their community. I think that that's something we need to learn to do more of. For example, even in shopping, whatever, if you feed into your community, they will feed back into you, I think. Good Faces started out really as just like a community of people that I believed in. The same thing with parties that I throw. It's DJs that I want to see win, and we all just grow together. So yeah, I think I just also love the idea of growing something and putting my energy into that. I'm in love with marketing. I remember actually the documentary that sparked my love for marketing was in high school. Someone played Cool Hunters in one of my classes. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to be a cool hunter. And I think with all my projects, that's kind of what I still do. And I will do that forever. I love chasing what is going to be the next big thing. I love finding the next big person before they even know they're going to be the big star. Once you start getting those opportunities for people and then you see that they don't really do anything with it or they're not really putting themselves out there and you're constantly putting them out there, it's just, there's an imbalance in the relationship. So I think that I'd rather either find those people who I can really grow together, or maybe I'd rather not work with you. And that's a reality that a lot of creatives have to face. A lot of creatives face a lot of self-doubt. They second guess themselves. But if you want to make it, you have to be all in on yourself. You really have to have that Kanye energy. I actually watch a lot of Kanye videos lately because I'm very into the mindset. But yeah, I think that every day you have to brainwash yourself that you're going to make it. There's always moments where I doubt myself, but that's something that I work on daily and I have to re-brainwash myself that that's just we don't have time for that. We have to believe in ourselves. If you're having those thoughts come into your mind, just block them out. The same way with criticism coming in, you just have to block that out. If you wouldn't take advice from that person, then you probably shouldn't be taking criticism from them. Same thing for yourself. You need to talk yourself out of it and get into the habit of rewiring your brain for success. There's opportunities out there that you're going to want. You have to align yourself with those opportunities so that when they come to you, you're already ready. You're already positioned to work with those people. So if I want to work with the biggest brands in the world, my portfolio better look like I'm working with the biggest brands in the world already. I think the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you present yourself should be aligned with that image. That's something I always encourage people to do, is think about who you really want to be. And if you can't get there and think of yourself in that light, think of who you admire. Think of who you want to be like, and just Photoshop your head on there and embody that person, because eventually you will be able to get those opportunities by being that person. I think success is just being at peace, being happy with the people I surround myself with, having enough that I can share, because that's something that's very important for me. And, I think I'm always going to be chasing something, because that's just who I am as a creative. I'm always going to be chasing that next opportunity, which is something we should also talk about, because I think a lot of the time we forget to stop and celebrate our wins, and we're just too much on to the next thing, and we don't actually take in our wins and realize what we've accomplished, which is problematic. But I think success is, being at peace. I think a key failure, a lot of the time I've realized that I have a knack for finding projects, or I guess I have a knack for discovering ideas early on. And this is something friends of mine that I admire have noticed. The problem is I would let go of those ideas before they had time to really flourish. So for example, I was in the music blogging scene and the fashion blogging scene extremely early on. I was invited to like all the music festivals. I was going to Fashion Week at 17 years old, like really with all the big bloggers that you know now. But I let go of that dream because I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And that happened with a lot of projects. I was on the right track at the cusp, and then I was like, oh, I don't know. And then next thing you know, those people who continued blew up, and I realized that my downfall is discipline and consistency. Like that's my biggest enemy, and I think that's a lot of creatives' biggest enemies, and a lot of ADHD people's biggest enemies, because we're always on to the next thing. My mom was the type of person who didn't let me go to parties when I was younger. She was very strict. But if something was for education, she was all in. So I remember just telling her like, hey mom, can I go to China to learn Chinese? And she was like, yes, absolutely. No questions asked. So I saved up my money and I went. But meanwhile, like a year prior, I was not allowed to go to prom, So it's completely ridiculous. I obviously studied Chinese, but then I obviously partied every day. But I also like integrated into the culture, and like it was just like an amazing experience. And I think like that has always stuck with me. I think that it's, every time you go to a new country, like it brings you so much in terms of knowledge and just ways of being. In school, I was always very lazy. I think I've always been really good at learning things very quickly. And just absorbing material very fast. So I was always the crammer. But I remember when I went to China to study, there was a teacher who was very, very strict. And if you didn't have 95% and above, she was just like, you're a failure. And every time we had an exam, she used to read out the scores from worst to best with your name. So there was definitely that pressure. But that kind of accountability, to be honest, for my personality type, really put me on. Like I was able to perform and get those 100s every day because I knew this lady would be reading my name out in front of everyone. So sometimes you just need a little bit of external pressure. Traveling has always been a very integrated part of me. Since when I was young, my mom brought us around the world. We saw how people lived. We really learned how to travel properly. So she would bring us into people's homes. We've always been so integrated into people's cultures. People actually always wonder that. They're like, why do you love these cultures so much? Or like, how are you so integrated in them? But I think when you learn languages, when you learn people's music, when you learn about their food, you can experience a culture in a different way. And I think that's always been a huge part of even my projects. Is like, how can we bring all these communities together and make people understand each other, make people feel seen? There's so many communities that aren't celebrated yet enough. And I think there's still a long way to go for inclusivity in the world, in branding and marketing, in society in general. Like, honestly, knock on wood, I don't die tomorrow. But I wouldn't mind dying tomorrow because really, like, I do live life to the fullest. I do jam as many opportunities to learn, to grow, to experience new things into my life as possible. And honestly, at 31, I feel like I've lived 10 lifetimes. Like, I've lived in so many different countries, done every kind of job. There's been a season where like, I was a kindergarten teacher, or I was, I don't know, like I know how to lay cement by hand. Like there's so many different skills that I've had in this lifetime. But that's what life is about. It's just about soaking it all in. Yeah. I would encourage you to book that flight, take that class, and just keep learning.